Four people. They've never met. One is 68, one is 52, one is 38, and one is 24. Different generations, different incomes, different lives, and every single one of them made the exact same financial mistake. Not a similar mistake, not a loosely related if you squint mistake, the exact same one, just wearing different clothes. And by the end of this video, you're going to recognize which version of that trap you're currently living. Here's what I need you to understand first. This trap has nothing to do with being bad with money. The people who fall into it are often quite careful. They budget. They think before they spend. They're not reckless. The trap is sneakier than that. At some point in every generation's story, the world quietly defined what doing well looked like. A certain kind of home, a certain kind of car, a certain kind of life.
Nobody explained the rules. You absorbed them. Through the people around you, the culture you grew up in, the things that got admired and celebrated. And when you could finally afford to live that version of success, you did. It felt like the natural next step. Here's the insidious part. It never feels wrong from the inside. It feels like the right call, like what any sensible person would do. But what they were buying wasn't wealth. It was the signal of wealth, the costume their generation was handed. And every pound that went into maintaining that costume was a pound that didn't go into building anything real. The trap is the same trap every time. It just changes outfit depending on the decade. Let me show you what I mean. Brian is 68.
Steady worked in manufacturing for 30 years. Steady job, decent wage, grafted his whole life. In 1985, Brian did what every smart person his age was told to do. He bought his semi-detached. Thatcher's right to buy had just changed everything. Owning your home wasn't just practical, it was the British definition of having made it. Renting was what your parents did when they had no choice. Buying was what winners did. So Brian took the biggest mortgage the bank would give him, bought his house, and spent the next 30 years maintaining it. Extensions, new kitchen, double glazing, the lot. Brian's house is now worth roughly 4 times what he paid in 1985. On paper, Brian is wealthy. But here's where it gets complicated, and this is the part most people don't see coming.
Brian is 68, and the vast majority of his net worth is sitting inside 4 walls he lives in. His company ran a defined benefit pension, the gold standard kind that used to be normal. It was wound down in the 90s. He has some savings, but not enough to fund 25 years of retirement. To unlock his wealth, Brian would have to sell. That means leaving the street he's lived on for 40 years. The home wasn't the trap. The trap was believing the home was the whole plan. Brian spent decades maintaining the signal of wealth while underfunding everything else. The arrival was real. The foundation underneath it had gaps. And the next version of the same trap picks up right here. Diane is 52. She works in HR and has been at director level for 8 years. She earns well.
Diane's generation grew up watching their parents and thought, we'll do better, we'll earn more, we'll have more. And they did earn more. That part worked. But every time Diane got a raise, her life expanded to match it. Hit 30 and got promoted, PCP deal on a new car. Broke into 6 figures, moved to a bigger house. Kids started secondary school, the Maldives for half-term, the kitchen extension for the summer. Each decision, individually, made total sense. She could afford it. She'd earned it. This is called lifestyle creep. The same trap Brian fell into, just in business casual. The problem wasn't that Diane spent money. The problem was that her expenses grew at exactly the same rate as her income. So despite earning significantly more than either of her parents, her savings rate barely moved.
The gap between what came in and what went out stayed almost exactly the same, just at a higher number. At 52, Diane looks financially successful. She is in some ways, but she's a decade from retirement and the maths are tight. The arrival signal for Gen X was lifestyle. Nice things, nice experiences, a life that looked like success. Diane delivered that signal every month, automatically, on direct debit. Now Tom, and if you're a millennial, hear this first. The system genuinely moved against your generation in ways that weren't your fault. The 2008 financial crisis was real. It wiped out the early careers of an entire cohort right at the moment they were supposed to be building their financial foundation. That matters,
and nobody gave it back. But here's the trap millennials walked into, and it makes complete sense given all of that.
The housing market felt structurally out of reach, deposits had ballooned, Help to Buy was a sticking plaster on a broken ladder. When you can't afford the things that signal arrival, a house, a pension, real equity, you spend on what you can afford. For Tom, that meant experiences. Glastonbury, city breaks in Lisbon and Seville, Deliveroo on a Tuesday because cooking felt like effort, subscriptions stacking up, Netflix, Spotify, the gym he sometimes goes to, the app he forgot he was paying for. The culture fully backed this. Spend on experiences, not things. You can't take it with you. Live your life. Every brand, every think piece, every Instagram caption told millennials this was the enlightened approach. Experiences were the real wealth. Tom spent his late 20s and early 30s collecting memories, genuinely good ones. But at 38, he has very little invested. No property.
A low-level anxiety about the future that he manages mostly by booking the next trip. The trap wasn't spending on experiences. The trap was using experiences as a substitute for building assets and having an entire cultural moment convince you that was wisdom. The arrival signal for millennials was the lived life, the full passport, the story, marketed so effectively that many didn't notice it was still just a costume, a different one, but the same function. And then there's Aisha, and this is where it gets genuinely interesting. Aisha is 24, and Aisha is fascinating because Gen Z is the most financially literate generation in history. She grew up watching finance content. She knows what an index fund is. She talks about compound interest like it's casual conversation. She has a stocks and shares ISA. She put £50 into it last month.
She's proud of that, and she should be. But here's the cruel twist. Aisha spends around £200 a month on things whose only function is looking good online. The ASOS hauls, the Stanley Cup that lives on her desk for the camera, the flat background carefully arranged for TikTok, the brands that say, "I have taste, I have money, I have arrived," broadcast to thousands of followers. The trap for Gen Z isn't ignorance, it's performance. They know the right language, compound interest, passive income, financial freedom, but some of them use that language to perform the idea of wealth rather than actually create it, posting about their ISA while the number inside it stays small, talking about financial independence while the spending quietly contradicts it. And here's the cruelest version of the trap. It looks most like wisdom.
Aisha knows more about money than any generation before her. She just hasn't aligned the knowledge with the behavior yet. And that gap between knowing and doing is where the trap lives. Aisha isn't lost. She's 24 and she's already further ahead than Tom was at 24. Time is completely on her side. But the trap is there, set and waiting, wearing a ring light and a carefully chosen background. 4 people, 4 decades, 1 trap. Brian's costume was the house, Diane's was the lifestyle, Tom's was the experiences, Aisha's is the aesthetic. Different decades, different wardrobes, identical function. Every generation gets handed a version of arrival, a signal that you've made it. And the trap is always the same, spending money on the signal before the substance is there to support it.
Once you see it in someone else's story, you start to see it in your own. And that recognition is where the exit is. So what does escaping it look like? Because people do. Every generation has people who saw the trap and stepped around it. When you look at what they did differently, it almost always comes down to one thing: separating the signal from the substance. They made a conscious decision to look less wealthy than they actually were, so their actual wealth could grow faster. They delayed the costume, kept the older car, stayed in the smaller house, put the difference somewhere that compounded. It's not complicated, but it runs completely against every social instinct we have, which is why even smart people fall into it. For Brian, escaping it would have meant keep the house, but fund the pension alongside it.
Not all in on one asset. For Diane, 1 lifestyle upgrade per raise, bank the other half. Let income growth outpace lifestyle growth, even slightly. Over 20 years, that gap becomes a retirement fund.
The maths of consistent investing over 2 decades surprise almost everyone. For Tom, 1 good trip a year, not 4. Take the difference and put it into an index fund every month, automatically. For Aisha, and she has every advantage of time, make the investing the thing you post about, not the aesthetic. Build the actual number faster than you build the look of the number. The rule, if you want one, is simple. Assets first, lifestyle second, every time. Not forever, just until the assets are doing enough work that the lifestyle pays for itself. That's the move every person who got it right figured out, regardless of their generation.
Brian, Diane, Tom, Aisha. None of them made bad decisions by the logic of their time. They followed the rules they were given. They just prioritized looking arrived over actually being arrived. And that, in every generation, is the trap. So here's the question I want to leave you with. Which version of the trap are you in right now? Is it the house that holds most of your net worth? The lifestyle that expanded with every pay rise? The experiences that felt like living but quietly replaced building? The aesthetic that performs wealth without quite creating it? Tell me in the comments, not to be judged. The first step out of any trap is being able to name it. If this landed, share it with someone who needs to hear it. They probably know which generation they are.
At Money Finance, our job is to give you the stuff most people only find out about too late. If this helped, hit subscribe. We put out new videos every week. Your money explained in plain English. No jargon, no suits. Until then, keep your assets ahead of your lifestyle. This is Money Finance. See you in the next one.